Well, welcome everybody. I'm Tom Still from the Wisconsin Technology Council. Pleased to be with you here today. Some of you may still be joining in with this Zoom, and so just thankful you can take part because it hopefully will be instructive to you as you think about how and how you'll enter and when you'll enter the Governor's Business Plan Contest. First slide here, just quickly, our deadline for all of our entries through govsbidsplancontest.com is just before midnight on the 31st of January. That's been our date from the inception of this contest. Govsbidsplancontest.com is the website, and Julie Johnson can be reached at info@govsbidsplancontest. She's our contest administrator. So thanks for that, and we'll move on here. So again, Tom Still, I'm president of the Tech Council. With us today will be Katie Jenkins, Six Line Semiconductor. That young company won last year's Governor's Business Plan Contest, which was conducted over rounds that I'll describe. And so welcome Katie to this little event here. Kalpa Vithalani, Marquette University. She handles a lot of the tech transfer duties there at Marquette. It works with young companies and also with researchers and trying to bridge those kinds of gaps. She's a member of our board of directors at the Tech Council, and she's been a judge, and we were trying to think back how long, but at least 12 years. And so thanks for joining us, Kalpa. And in both cases here, we get to hear, some really hands-on kind of advice of what you should do, and in some cases, what you shouldn't do. And that's at least as important. So, all right. Again, over time, we started this in 2004. It seems like yesterday in some ways, but we've had nearly 4,700 people take part in the contest over time. 346 distinct Wisconsin communities. So big cities like Milwaukee and Madison, little burgs that, you might not expect to see things. Shared in 2.8 million in cash and service prizes over time, and a lot of exposure. That's one of the biggest things out of it is that, folks who get, especially to those closing rounds, they feel like people notice them, and some good things happen because of that. So, and there's a lot of mentoring. The judges, such as Kalpa and others, are always there to help with advice as well, and provide the feedback. As noted, chance to compete for cash, in-kind prizes, which can be everything from office space to whatever. Chance to get that feedback, and a hands-on way to, in your own kind of pace, to move a plan that could be just, on the back of a napkin or something into reality. And so that's what we like about it. We think is a phased way to help a lot of entrepreneurs. By the numbers again, 21 years, those 346 communities, the total entries. What, to notice there is some people sometimes say, well, hey, why are so few in life sciences? Well, it's a lot over time, but at the same time, life sciences is where there might be some higher hurdles, both regulatory and capital raising, to get something across the finish line. So that's why that particular category is about roughly half of what each of the other three look like. At least 300 million has been raised by folks who went through the contest over time. We know that because we do a lot of things to track what happens with angel and venture capital investment, but also that includes, grants and other types of funding that may come through. And maybe most important is for young companies is it helps. I mean, our statistics show this. It helps increase their survival rate. We've done 2 surveys in the course of the contest over time. Both came in exactly for those who made the second to the last round and beyond, 77% survival rate for 5 years. Now, I think it's about half that, generally speaking, for most young companies. So it's something that allows that stickiness for young companies, which is always important. And here are some of the folks who've done well. Vector Surgical, Janet Phillips, she entered actually 3 times. She only won after the third time she went through. So if there are folks out there who have, tried before and maybe made it to one stage or another, there's hope for you. I mean, it really does work that way. Trilogy Medical is another one. Rapid Radicals was just the year before Katie Jenkins. Revolution EHR really did super well over time and the kinds of revenue they raised. Biosystem Development was acquired. Bob Craft Beer, maybe some of you have heard of that or drank some of that. Polka, that has really taken off. And again, they had entered a couple of times. Hyde Sportswear. So the list goes on. So some good success stories over time. A few testimonials here if you want to take a second to look. These are folks who thought that they got out of the contest what they hoped to get out when they entered. And by that I mean it's it's the mentoring, it's the notion of being able to move their plan along. It's the notion of at least getting on the radar screen for different types of investments. So, everybody's at their same own pace. Everybody is going to have different results, but this is what some people have said about the contest. So again, 4 categories. We're, for the purposes of January 31st, that's phase 1. That's the idea abstracts, the 250-word entries. Categories, again, advanced manufacturing, business services, information technology, life sciences. And some people have said, well, hey, those are the same categories over time. There's a lot of things have changed, the advent of AR, AI, everything else. But still, we've found that the more general, the more entries we can fit into one of the 4. So, for example, Katie was in IT. So that's, you're going to hear more about her plan in a bit, but we found that keeping it general really helps the entrepreneurs. 250 words, product and service description, customer definition, market description, size and sales strategy, and competition. Those are the main things you need to touch in that category. What's the problem you hope to solve? What's your solution? Well, how's the market going to greet this? And who might compete with you is another way of saying that. We have a number of volunteer judges like CULPA. We're usually around 70 in any given year. And these are folks from kind of all walks of life and business, but they're people who've been there, done that, and they know what they're looking for. It's really, as you'll see when CULPA talks, kind of a veteran crew. About 12 judges are assigned to each plant. So a lot of sets of eyeballs there. The next phase 2, is the executive summary. This is where we move on the top 50, 1,000 words. Same sort of 4 main categories at the beginning, but you add in the management team, the financials, the capital needs. This is where you begin to flesh out your plan. And so going from 250 to 1,000 is a way of doing that. Mentors throughout may submit questions to a group of mentors, innovative business leaders who are volunteering time, expertise. You can just email mentors at GovsBiz Plan Contest with any kind of question, and they'll try to tackle it. One thing we have coming up that is usually a pretty successful event is our boot camp for those who, and really it's kind of open to everybody who wants to, but it's at the point when that top 50 is beginning to, do their work. And our mentors include, again, a variety of people, and they're mentors, but they're not judges. So we keep that a little separate. Phase 3, pitch decks. Top 2 dozen get to do this, 15-minute pitch decks with voiceover audio. Same 8 criteria as phase 2. Judges will review those and select 3 finalists in each category. That's when we get down to our top 12. And this is where the judges get to see how you make your pitch with you on the screen. So it's a way for them to begin to connect the kinds of things they've seen in your written plans with you as a person, and what kind of a salesperson are you really at the end of the day. Diligent doesn't. This takes place at the Entrepreneurs Conference in June. Top 12. Um, Everybody gets to present live. Free admission for those who were there. Here's where we use a system of a compilation of scores to figure out who the grand prize winners and category winners are. And so yeah, we'll announce a date on that Entrepreneurs Conference soon, but it's usually first weekend in June and in Milwaukee. It'll be at the Italian Community Center. Timeline, all important timeline. Deadline I've mentioned, end of the day by the 31st. February 2nd, we get right into judging. February 15th, that round of judging ends. The 19th, phase 2 is open for the semifinalists. The 5th is the boot camp, which will also be in the Milwaukee area. March 11th, phase 2 deadline. That's the 1,000 words. 14th, phase 2 judging begins. 28th, it ends. Phase 3 opens April 1st. You can see the rest of it here as it goes along. So, but by May 10th, we're going to have the top 12 selected. And so they're going to have some time to do practice pitches. Again, that's where we have mentors and other volunteers who can be there to hear that and offer their suggestions. And then the live pitches at the Entrepreneurs Conference. All right. Well, I want to reintroduce Katie Jenkins here. She won last year out of a pretty big group and a great group. I mean, I remember hearing from some of our judges that they felt as good about that batch, that vintage of contest entrants as they have in any group we've had. And so, Katie, I know you want to talk a little bit about your phase 1 entry. Maybe we'll see a bit of your video, but also tell us a little bit just at the outset about Six Line and maybe some progress you've had since the contest.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, and it feels great to be able to be a part of this presentation, because I remember attending this one last year as an entrant and learning from this. So at Six Line, we are focused on improving energy efficiency and speed of your personal electronics like cell phones and laptops by replacing or by using a new material. And so that's kind of the high level of what we do. Based on my PhD work, kind of started Six Line out of UW-Madison. And since the business plan competition, the feedback that we had during the competition was really vital in helping shape how I pitch and shape kind of our business trajectory as well. So since then, I was awarded an Activate Fellowship, which provided funding for myself and then also funding for the company. We were awarded an NSF STTR phase 1 to support some of those technical challenges that we're still overcoming towards our goals. And through that STTR, we've been able to hire we had our first hire start in November of last year. And then we are currently hiring again for another position as well. So continuing to grow and take the feedback that we had from those judges and through this competition and apply them as I go out and start fundraising very soon.
Excellent. And so, well, Katie, we'll take a look at your first round entry here in a second. But even though your background was primarily technical, you had to sell this per se as a business plan and how it was going to solve the problem, how it was going to make money eventually. So let's move ahead here to Katie's first round plan. There we go. Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the product and description, I mean, these are the four categories that we're all applying towards or working on here. And in the product or description, I really wanted to immediately sell, this is what we're going to deliver. And so that's why I hit right away carbon nanotubes, which are the material that Six Line is based around, is promising, this faster performance, higher energy efficiency, and then tying that to things like cell phones and computers, where everyone uses them. And then selling the challenge, or at least in the product and service description, that's also where I included, why haven't we done this before? It's this problem of creating these aligned assemblies or films. And so then I say, that's why we're overcoming this. That's Six Lines core, is that this is the problem we're overcoming, and these are the things that we're enabling. So that was the product or service description. For the customer definition, really that's where I wanted to hit the problem. In the first section, I hit what our unique advantage was, but in the second section, that's where I was really showing the needs that we needed to overcome, or that we needed to meet in order to be successful in this area. And so I mentioned this, 6G, 7G, next G, advanced Wi-Fi types of performance. And again, trying to tie that to things that, most people will have heard of, Wi-Fi, 6G, 7G. These are kind of not buzzwords, but things that are more ubiquitous than some other very technical things that I initially had in my first draft.
Yeah.
Yeah. For market description, size, and sales strategy, I think a good thing, and something that I've continued to do, is tying, first, what's your beachhead? What is your niche that you're first going to be entering into? I think that can be really important to help demonstrate, that you've have a more concrete plan than just, oh, I'm Six Line, we're going to revolutionize electronics. That's great. What are you actually going to do first? And then also tying that to solid market numbers, showing that your business can be successful, that there's a large enough market for your business. And then I also stepped through kind of like our sales or our strategy for entering and being successful as a business. So first supplying these aligned nanotube wafers, and then furthering into fabrication equipment, and then nanotube materials. So kind of that 3 steps. And then for the competition, really focused on just, who are your competitors, and what are you able to employ or deliver over them? And that was kind of all of my different sections that I focused on here. I think there's definitely areas, I mean, both based on judge feedback and based on what I learned throughout this process. I think looking at this, I see many areas where I would have changed or done something different to improve this as well.
Well, yeah, let's dwell on that just for a second. And I want to fold in Calpo as a part of this conversation too. First thing, I forgot until I saw this again, and I read them all when they come in as well. You were very precise about the 75 words in each cat. I mean, basically, I think it's some advice for folks is use your full 250. Don't go over, but use your full 250 and try to have it. I mean, in your case, it was very balanced. Was that part of your strategy?
Yeah, absolutely. And I know Kalpa was also mentioning this previously as well, was really trying to, maximize the information that's in each of those sections and not repeating it. So use
Yeah.
your 75 words or however many words, and don't
Mm-hmm.
reuse those words.
Right, right. So just as long as you get up as close as you can to that 250, you're right at it. Culpa, were you among the folks who read this on the first in the first stage? Not every judge sees every plan at first, but I know you saw it later, of course.
Yeah, no, I did not see this at the first stage. But had I seen this at the first stage, Katie, I wouldn't really change too much about it. I would have said, yep, this one moves on. And since the judges are asked to rank numerically, like
Mhm.
provide numerical scores for each of the four sections, this would have scored really highly in each of the sections. And you did exactly what it is, at least that when I'm reviewing these at this 250 word stage, I want you to follow instructions as an entrant. We're asking for information on these four things. Please provide it to us. If you don't, I'm beginning to think in the back of my mind, maybe this entrant thinks they know better than what the tech council is asking for. At the end of the day, you as an entrant are going to want to grow a business that is scalable. You will be looking for investor money down the line. Investors also want to know that you are going to be able to be coachable. And if you can't follow instructions at this very first stage, um, doesn't convey the impression very well to the judges. You're really trying to make this as your best first impression. So if you're applying for a job, you have a cover letter and a resume. Think of this as a cover letter. You want to hit enough of the points and the points that are being asked for to really intrigue in this case, the judges, but at the end of the day, down the line, it's going to be an investor. You want them to be stimulated. You want them to want to know more. You want them to think that you know what you're talking about. You know the depths of each of these four categories that you're being asked about.
And Katie, I'd love to hear your feedback on this too. Um, I think sometimes a mistake we see with some entrances, they don't really start writing it till maybe a day before or whatever. It's a good thing to write, let sit for a while, edit, maybe let sit for a while later. How did you approach that, Katie?
Yeah, I would say that's writing it earlier and then re-editing it and editing it and editing it again.
Mhm.
That was my approach. And then also, I think it's important. I sent my application to one of the members of my team who doesn't directly come from, my background,
Mhm.
and doesn't have, a PhD in whatever. So
Mhm.
he provided a lot of really good insights as well, because I wrote it very technical, and I think my application could still do with some reducing the technicality from this stage.
Mhm.
But it really helped getting outside feedback as well from someone who's not directly so familiar with the technology and what you're actually doing.
Oh yeah, they may see points made or not made that could be really valuable. Yeah, your thoughts on that, Calpo? Kind of write it, edit, all of that.
You can tell when someone just kind of slapped it together. You'll see mistakes. No, please don't make just basic spelling mistakes, or an idea doesn't flow for even in the same section. It's like, wait, what are you saying to me? The other thing I want to stress is what Katie said in terms of getting too technical. Well, hey, we love nerds. I'm a nerd myself, and we love talking about the technology. But here it's about talking about the product. Your technology enables this product or service, as it might be. What does it do for your customer? Are you telling us in lay terms? Again, don't assume your audience knows your space. Um, what is the problem? Is there a real problem there? Because solutions looking for problems to solve do not make good businesses. Um, how are you solving the problem? What is your competition? And what is the market? I mean, address each of these things, and the more you revise, the more you're gonna be able to convey your message better. And I love what Katie did, which is to have someone review the entry or what you've written that doesn't live and breathe your technical space all the time, because it has to make sense to a layperson. You are an expert, but chances are any of the other people you're going to be pitching to, a good portion of them are not going to be deep tech experts.
Very good. Let's move to the next slide here, because I think this is where we have a video clip, and it was actually 13 minutes, so you were kind of deliberately under the 15-minute maximum, I think, Katie. We should talk about that in a second. But let's see a few minutes of this, and we can also send out a link to this later. So let's watch Katie in action here. Probably a little delay as it queues up. Well, maybe I'm going to be wrong about that. So, Katie,
Hey, Tom, just a second here. We got to figure out the sound. It's sounding good here, but it's just not playing over.
Okay. Well, let's talk to Katie for a minute then.
Oh, here we I don't think we need to. Let's give this a go. I think I found it.
Okay.
Sorry about that, everyone.
My name is Dr. Katie Jenkins, and I'm CEO and co-founder of Six Line Semiconductor, where we're focused on leveraging
I cut out.
No, that was me.
a novel semiconductor material,
I tried muting myself, so I'll just stay quiet here, everyone. Here we go.
carbon nanotubes, to meet the needs of next-gen wireless electronics. Six Line is a UW-Madison spinout founded in September of 2022. At Six Line, we overcome a 30-year-old challenge to finally harness carbon nanotubes to meet the fundamental needs of next-gen electronics. While wireless communication is our initial target market, we also will expand into a wider range of semiconductor device markets, such as digital logic or sensors, as the company grows in the future. In the last 2 decades, there has been an exponential increase in the number of wirelessly connected devices, driven by the growth of personal electronics, as well as Internet of Things connected devices. This includes things like creating smart houses and cars, and specifically the Internet of Things market is projected to reach 50 billion devices by 2030. Wireless devices are also required for state-of-the-art military communication, like reliable and long-distance data transmission and highly sensitive radar. As the need for next-gen wireless devices and communication grows, so too do the performance needs. These applications require significant advances in performance, including larger data transmission bandwidths, faster speeds, improved reliability, wider accessibility, and increased energy efficiency. However, current materials cannot meet these requirements for next-gen device performance, and therefore, new material platforms need to be developed. Specifically to achieve this performance, materials for radio frequency, or RF,
That was a great example, by the way, of the problems, right? Where you had 5 problems that you were talking about and hoping to solve there. So that was good. Joe, if you can continue.
Oh,
No, maybe not.
just a sec. No, I can. It just clicked.
That's okay. That's a taste of it.
Okay.
So as you looked at that part again, Katie, what did you think? How did you feel that that came together? Are you still happy with it?
I mean, I can always see areas that I can improve on. But I think the things that I liked about that intro were, like you mentioned, really, I think hitting the problem early is really important for engaging people, and also really showing that you understand, what problem you're solving. Like Kalpa was saying, you're not creating a solution where there is no problem. And then I think I in and this is something that I have continued to do in my pitches, that I have, that second slide where it's kind of an overview where it's saying, this is what we do, and this is this 30-year problem, or like our unique advantage is essentially what I'm saying on that slide is we're solving this and we're providing this unique advantage that hasn't been able to be achieved. And also mentioning our beachhead market is wireless comm, but we're planning to expand in the future. So I like that second slide where it's kind of a overview of this is who we are, essentially.
And you mentioned, really several different markets, right? Overall, I mean, so that you weren't leaving people thinking this was a one-trick pony or anything. So,
right.
Kalpa, do you remember when you saw this this video at the beginning, or nearly a year ago now?
Sorry, I was muted. Yes. So I love that you enumerated the problems, because at the end of the day, to be successful, you as a business are looking to solve an existing problem, a problem that people are facing currently, and more importantly, a problem that people would be willing to pay for to solve. And so to list that out and then to follow up with how it is that your solution meets these needs is critical.
Okay, very good. So again, we can send out a link to this so folks can see the full presentation. So I'm going to take a look right now and just quickly in chat before we move ahead. What are good sources for market research data? Boy, a lot of different places, it seems to me. Well, let's start with you, Kalpa. I mean, I got some ideas, but go ahead.
So like overall, I mean, I know you guys hear about, hey, don't throw out these random large numbers, but at this 250 word stage, you can convey to the judges that you've at least done enough digging into enough research to know sort of what is this larger market. And for those general numbers, you can look at sources like, and I had even made a list, like Gartner, Forrester, Dun and Bradstreet, Hoover's. Even if you do general searches, like even Google searches on market for and whatever your niche is, chances are you're going to see a lot of reports come up where you can glean general information, how fast the market is growing, what the market segments are. And it won't be until you get to sort of your next phase, the 1,000 words, and then the full business plan, where you'll want to do a little more addressable market research. And there you can reach out to people who are in the field, look for people who are in your sector, even on LinkedIn, for example, reach out within your networks, because at this stage, nobody's going to be able to afford to buy a market report that costs thousands of dollars.
Exactly. And try to focus that research as much as possible. As was just mentioned, big giant numbers, judges are not going to really believe anyway. Katie, were you able to funnel that down into in your later entries into specific kind of numbers on the size of the market?
Yeah, absolutely. And that was definitely something that we tried to refine as much as possible to have those more realistic numbers.
Yeah, good. Next question. can you apply if you have a new startup, or is the competition just for existing businesses? No, you can be as new as you want to be. It doesn't have to be an LLC or really anything at this point. I mean, it can just be Joe or Jane Smith, and here's my idea. Those kinds of steps you probably want to take later as you move along, but yeah, you can start at any point. Follow up on this question: is it preferable to see candidates that make the case for needing securing future investment, in other words, scalability, or make the case for use of funds for getting to market? I don't know. I've seen them all. How did you approach that, Katie?
So, I mean, we took this as an opportunity to think about our long-term plan, and our long-term plan involves raising funds and scaling to get into, those different markets that I mentioned. So that's, I mean, we just outlined those are our needs, and this is what our business plan is. So that was our approach.
Good. Any advice there, Culpa?
So at this 250 word level, you're not going to be able to necessarily spend the time showing the deep research you've done. And I'm looking for evidence that you have an idea of the general market as you move along. And if you're going to use numbers to show what your addressable market is going to look like, make sure that you show your assumptions. Build your forecasts from the bottom up, and from those assumptions, don't just say, this is the size of the market and we're going to capture this % of it, therefore we're going to make this is going to be our revenue stream. No, that's not a good approach, because any seasoned investors, which is who your eventual target audience is going to be, is going to want to know that you have put a lot of thought into that. Have you thought about exactly how you will reach that customer? How much does it cost to acquire each of those customers? How will you distribute your product or service? You'll be wanting to think about market entry strategy. So you heard Katie say at the very beginning, she talked about who it is they're going to go after first, and then next, and then next. In other words, what is your beachhead market? Who are you selling to first, and why? So you'll get into more of those details, obviously, and the assumptions underneath why that is your strategy as you get into the 1,000-word and then the full business plan. But Katie managed to convey those things in those 250 words.
Sure. No, it's good. Another question here: is this contest only for technology products and services? That's a yes and a no. We have seen some really good entries over time that have leveraged technology, but they might be in the retail world. They might be somewhere else. That we've seen some in the nonprofit world as well. As long as it leverages some kind of technology to advance the business and maybe introduce something in a business that's maybe historic kind of sector. That's what we look for. Culpa, do you have any thoughts on that? You score anybody down if they're not directly tech?
No, I think at least as I've understood the contest, and it's a well-established contest, we're looking for scalable businesses. So whether that is based on deep tech or not, yeah. Is it a scalable business, or is this going to remain sort of a one store? That's not the kind of business that is applying typically for the contest.
Yeah, scalability is important. And I want to reference back to, there was the question about, hey, should this be targeted to investors or really about other pieces? Not every business is going to be successful or should even try to be successful in terms of ranging angel and venture. And the market for that is right now it's been a little tighter, right? But at the same time, you probably don't want to foreclose those options either because of the scalability factor. Like Katie just mentioned that she's now she feels she's at a point now where she has a good story to bring to potential investors. And so it's not always the first thing out of the blocks, but you may want to get there as your company progresses. Katie, thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. We were when we entered this competition, I think we were planning to raise earlier, dilutive funding or, from angels or VCs earlier. But as we went through this process and understood our business plan more, we understood more of the risks that needed to be eliminated before we wanted to take that step. So I think it's just understanding, where you are, and trying to make sure that you're not taking, VC or angel money before you're ready. And each business is different and each path of that business is different. So
yeah, exactly. And whether they're angels or VCs, and when you do take the money, know that the clock starts ticking, and they're going to want a return on that money at some point. So the timing is very important. So good addition there, Katie. There was a question about can an entrant be structured as a nonprofit, such as a 501c3? Well, yeah, and we have seen that over time. The thing to remember about nonprofit is a tax status, not a goal. I mean, nonprofit organizations have to raise money as well. They have to have those kinds of funds to succeed and grow and meet their missions. So so there's no rules against that whatsoever. Again, one of the things as Kalpa has emphasizes, we look for scalability. How can this grow and solve the problem and the nonprofit side, okay, but it's not a deterrent. So let's see here.
About the investors, Katie made a really good point about only seeking out investment, and Tom mentioned it as well, when the time is right. And you will begin to know about how you will make these decisions based on where you are with your technology. If it is a tech-based solution, Katie mentioned she was able to get small business tech transfer research grants. Those are federal grants that I believe 11 of our federal agencies are mandated to set aside for exactly this kind of R&D for an early stage business. It is very smart to take advantage of what is essentially America's largest seed fund. You want to try to develop your product or service as much as you can using these non-dilutive funds, because as soon as you start taking on angel and VC money, you're starting to bring on dilutable funds. And so that is so important. So I'll just give an example of our startup company, Rapid Radicals Technology, that Tom mentioned in one of his earlier slides, that won the 2022 Governor's Business Plan competition.
That was out of Marquette, right?
Exactly. So the technology is developed right here in our civil and environmental engineering department. It can treat waste and sewage waters, storm waters in 30 minutes, which takes current technology 8 or 12 hours to do. Prevents us from releasing poop water into our pristine waters here in the Midwest. That company actually registered as an LLC 6.5 years ago, and has been advancing the technology using these non-dilutive funds. So federal research grants that came into the university, as I'm sure they did for Katie and her advisor, as well as these non-dilutive funds from America's largest seed fund. And to date, Rapid Radicals has raised almost $1.6 million in these non-dilutive funds to advance the technology where it is. There's 2 pilot units sitting at the sites of the Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewage District. Massively impressive. And now they're at a point where they will be considering taking on investment money.
Yeah. And very important point, non-dilutive funding is something that investors also welcome. And you mentioned that there are various pipelines through the federal government and some of the grants and pieces that are available. Also, one of the things we helped work on at Tech Council was an increase in the state R&D tax credit, which went from 15 to 25%, which is a good improvement. So there may be larger companies sometimes that take a look at emerging companies and the kind of technology they have and can put some money in, especially if they see the tax credit coming back. So let's see, there's one more question here before we move on. How much was spent on design of presentation? Katie, did you actually spend anything there, or was that all sweat equity?
Yeah, I spent a lot of time on the presentation. We had, I mean, for this nanotube background, that's probably the fanciest image in the presentation. That one was through the UW previously, so that was an image that we had already had. I don't think you need to spend any money to make a really attractive and engaging presentation. And especially a lot of the images, or in my presentations, I don't remember if it's in this one as well, I pulled, free stock images and free icons. There's so many resources out there. I would just make use of those and put some time in to make it flow and be attractive.
Yeah, you're right. A lot of stock images out there and more every day. So that's great. Well, let's move to the next slide, which I actually believe is Kalpa. Any other thoughts at this point? It's good. We've been able to weave this in as we go along, which is excellent. Anything we haven't touched on to date? And bear in mind, I've got some other slides about some rules and stuff. So
absolutely. So competition, sometimes when we're so enamored with our own solution, we tend to think, oh, nobody has anything like this out there. Even if there is nothing like your product or service out there, there is always competition. Inaction is competition.
yes.
How are people solving this problem now? And if you're not going to be able to convince them that your solution is better, faster, cheaper, whatever it is, whatever your unique strengths are, you're not going to sell. So make sure you pay attention to what that competition is, identify your competitors, differentiate yourself from your competitors, and talk about your strengths. It's okay to even address your weaknesses and how you're going to address your weakness.
Yeah. The absolute wrong answer in this, especially in this first round of the contest or any time, it would be, I have no competition.
Yeah.
As Kalpa noted, I mean, it can be consumer inaction, consumer indifference. There's always something that competes for the attention of your potential markets.
And the only other thing I would add is if you have a way to prevent others from doing what it is you're doing through your product or service, do you have patents that are pending? Do you have a trade secret? What's you don't have to share what your secret sauce is, but you need to share that you have some secret sauce or ways to keep others from entering that same niche.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay. Well, Joe, let's move on here. So a little bit about what you can win. depending on where you get. Again, this happens at the Entrepreneurs Conference where there's the live presentations, quick judging by all the judges who are there, and then we turn it around within that competition. And so that's when we got to call Katie up on stage and let her know she was the big winner. We about that of that 120 there, and that's probably our goal for this year too. About half is cash, about half is in kind. Can be legal services, which is super important for young companies, accounting, web development, office space, prototyping, marketing, other pieces. And we're always out there raising that. So, these are all things that young companies we have found over time could really use. So next, Joe, some frequently asked questions. Am I eligible to participate? Well, I guess that's at the core. Yeah, all you got to be is 18 years old or older, have a business plan that employs or leverages technology. We talked about that earlier. Can be an e-commerce platform for a traditional business, a mobile application, a life science innovation, or an advanced manufacturing process or system, just anything that's pushing that envelope. You got to be based in Wisconsin or plan to locate a business here. We have seen that over time that people said, well, I'm not here right now, but I'm, just across the border in Minnesota or Illinois or wherever, and would like to be there. And by the way, there's a recent survey that says Wisconsin's startup business costs are lower than both Minnesota and Illinois. I just thought I'd get that plug in right now. So have not received more than $50,000 in private equity funding as of January 31st. Now, after January 31st, and you feel you're ready to go out and get some, angel or venture, have at it. I mean, we don't penalize people for having raised as long as they had not raised that much by January 31st. So for purposes of that, what's private equity in this case? Well, angel, venture, equity investments by accelerators. It does not include SBIR, STTR, a little bit that Kalpa talked about, bank loans, non-dilutive accelerator program grants, or funding from friends and family. So, if you got a rich uncle who's already got some money into this, that's great. And but you can always raise that question about what does qualify with us, and we'll take a hard look at it. So that's always good. Can I use intellectual property in my business? Kalpa also had touched on this a little bit. It's got to be yours. It's got to be owned by you or licensed by you as the entrant. We've only seen actually in the history of the contest one case where we thought it was not really truly their own intellectual property, and they were disqualified over that. But trademarks, copyrights, patent pending status, an issued patent. And this is one of the things that our mentors help with a lot, because some of them are attorneys, some of them are actually very specifically IP attorneys. And so that those kinds of questions can be bounced off them, and they might be able to help if you, and as Kalpa said, you don't have to share the secret sauce in the entry itself. It's just our judges need to be, mindful and convinced that it's out there. Anything else on that, Kalpa?
Yeah, no, I like to know. I'm in the IP business, and so I'm always, my radar is always up to look in any entry, to look to see, what is the company doing to either protect or otherwise at least communicate with, in this case, the judges down the line. If you're going to look for investment, investors are certainly going to want to know that you have all of the things Tom just mentioned, either patents pending, issued patents. What is your proprietary standpoint for the company?
Very good. Okay. And here it is. Can you enter more than once? Yep. No upper limit. you might find your time is divided quite a bit. Can you imagine, Katie, had you worked on 3 of these or something? That would have,
That would have been almost impossible. Like
yeah,
just how much time I spent revising one of them, that would have
yeah,
been full-time
yeah.
job.
But yeah, and you can, and example here is like sometimes there can be um almost somewhat related ideas within a sector. And so, just be cognizant that, that can sometimes take a lot of time, but it's certainly allowed. New account for each entry, however, so we want a different email address. This is just logistically, so we're tracking what could be multiple entries in a way that makes sense for both our judging process and our mentoring process. And yeah, yeah, again, if you got any questions, just throw them through info@govsbizplancontest.com. In the times that we have seen multiple entries, sometimes they're in different categories. In fact, in those cases where it happens, it might be one in advanced manufacturing and one in information technology, because again, they could be related, but they're perhaps in different categories, which is useful. Okay. Our resources score. Thanks to Earl Humphrey, who might be on this actual Zoom. He's organized folks through SCORE around the state to do counseling and mentoring, talk about business strategies. I mean, they're available for a lot of things, and so we're thankful for that. The Center for Technology Commercialization is a great resource. They have a lot of folks who have seen many good plans over time and some plans that needed work, and so they're available. And on our website is our Entrepreneur School Toolkit, which we developed to provide a lot of information and assistance and networking contacts. So that's out there as well. That's witoolkit.com, or just go through our Technology Council website as well. And I think we also have it listed up on the Gov's Biz Plan contest site. So, yeah, finally, Julie Johnson is our administrator for this. She'll be around to guide you through the process. Probably, you'll see, if you do enter, you'll see more emails from her than you ever would imagine. So that's all good. It's all about the communication and keeping people on track. And because we want people to succeed. We do this because we care about what's happening in Wisconsin. We care about the startup climate here, and we want to be a great part of trying to be of assistance wherever we can. So there's one final question here. There may be, is there a time frame for which your business has to be located in Wisconsin? Are there any rules around relocation if a business starts off and decides to move? We hope you do move. if this is somebody from elsewhere, sure. If you're, well, I mean, it's possible for some people that if they move into Wisconsin this month, they can, for me, that residency clock starts there. And so that's good. Kalpa, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I know that eventually the business, I mean, in order to avail of a lot of the resources Tom just
Right.
mentioned,
Mhm.
you do need to be a Wisconsin registered company.
Right. Yeah. You got to show an address of some sort.
Yeah.
So, yeah, very good. Very good. All right. Well, thanks. I think we've come to the end of this, but that doesn't mean that we're at the end of our relationship with you and our ability to help. So, with that, we know we'll have this, for some people maybe joined a little late. We'll have this presentation ready to go. So it's all good. Any final thoughts, Katie or Kalpa? And again, thank you for your participation today. Very helpful.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. No, my final thoughts would be please don't hesitate to apply. We want to hear
Yep.
about all these incredible businesses that are sprouting. It may be an idea right now in your mind. It doesn't matter. As Tom said, hey, think of this as your napkin drawing.
Yeah.
Just finesse it a little bit. Make
Yeah.
sure you answer all of the four category questions that we're asking, but we want to know about you and we want to support you.
Yeah. And it's okay to walk before you run. That's
Mhm.
the other part of this contest, and quite deliberately why we build it the way we did. So it allows you to get into this in stages. All right. Well, thanks all. Thanks again to Katie and Kalpa for their diligence and great advice during this. All right. Well, we hope to hear from all of you soon. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye bye.